I stated in several videos recently that I want to try some new games and genres of games, and this is the first iteration of me doing so. Besides Overwatch, which I got into because I like the strategy behind it, I could never really get into FPS games, ever since I got my first PS1 as a kid. My friends in high school always wanted to play Black Ops 2, but I was too busy grinding Slayer on old school RuneScape to bother. Now, just because some shitty YouTuber with 150 subs says that he couldn't get into FPS games, doesn't mean that there aren't good FPS games out there. I chose Left 4 Dead 2 as the first game for me to branch out and try new things for a few reasons. Firstly, it's an FPS game, which as I said is a somewhat new genre for me, and it's a zombie game, which I could never really get into previously. But it came highly recommended. Also, most importantly, I already had the game because of the Valve pack, and I'm broke and I don't really want to go buy a bunch of new games. Now, Left 4 Dead 2 really pleasantly surprised me. This game is really awesome and fun. To me, whose only real experience with zombie games was Black Ops Zombies, after a couple minutes, I was actually smiling when I was playing the game. The zombies in this game are super dynamic and aggressive. Think like I Am Legend zombies with a twist. They run at you, this one spits some toxic shit at you, this one literally blows up, and these two are actually on roids. This is no like Walking Dead stuff. The primary game mode in Left 4 Dead 2 is the campaign. There really isn't much of a story, which was a little disappointing to me. Most of the clips of zombie games I've seen, I think, were from The Last of Us, so I was kind of expecting something like that, but the campaign isn't really linear. It's, as my friend called it, episodic. Not really sure if that's an actual term that people use in the gaming industry, but I think that sums it up pretty well. At any time, you can hop into any part of the game with up to 4 friends at any difficulty. I guess arcade might be a better description. I was kind of hoping to have a linear story campaign experience when I progressed through the game, but it feels like this game was really designed around being a multiplayer co-op experience, and although that's not what I was expecting due to me not doing any research, it delivered very well on that, I'd say. The gameplay is really cool. I mean, if you watch any gameplay from this game, you'd see what I mean. Again, the zombies are super aggressive, and I would say the flow of the waves of zombies is really good too. There are times when you get just enough of a break to heal yourself or reload, but it never feels long enough to really get a grip of your surroundings or what the hell is actually going on. There are a lot more weapon options than I would have expected. There are a few different types of shotguns, rifles, and scoped weapons, as well as a ton of different secondary melee weapons. However, to me, most of the melee weapons felt the same. There were a couple that stand out, like the samurai sword, but most of them are a relatively slow one-shot kill from melee distance on most zombies at about the same speed, and it felt the same. Also, I really wish you could look down the sights of more guns and more fluidly. The scopes for the sniper rifle and hunting rifle are toggled by hitting right-click. You don't hold right-click to scope in, so they felt really clunky to use for me, and from what I can tell, there isn't a way to change that. Now, with these nitpicky things in mind, remember that this game is almost 13 years old now at the time of recording. Although these weapon things I described are pretty standard in most modern FPS games, and sure, modern FPS game guns probably feel better, this game felt insanely polished to me for a game this old. I mean, hell, Assassin's Creed 2, Borderlands, and the original COD Modern Warfare came out in 2009, so keep that in mind for a frame of reference. The fact that me not having much experience with these older FPS games, being able to pick up Left 4 Dead 2 and not immediately feel like it was unplayable because the gameplay felt really clunky is really impressive. Also, spread throughout each map, there feels to be just enough consumables for you to get by, but not enough that you can ever really top off to full health. So it always feels like you're living on the edge, at least if you suck at the game like me. Overall, I would say the campaigns, for the goal of being a co-op, arcade-style multiplayer game, are really, really well designed. The levels are difficult, you're constantly on your toes. They're never really dull, and they're fun and interesting all the way through. Now, there are some other game modes as well, including some versus game modes where one team plays as the zombies and randomly spawns as one of the special zombies, and you can try to use its abilities to catch one of the survivors off guard. I actually found these really fun to play from the survivor's perspective, as I found the real players to be a lot more predictable than the AI. But for me, playing as the zombies wasn't really fun to me. But these modes seem to be pretty active, so there's quite a few people who enjoy it. There's also a solo mode, which is insanely difficult because if you get jumped by one hunter or charger and you don't kill it before it gets to you, you're basically dead. Then there's also survival mode, which seems to me like it's just the normal campaign, but with less ammo availability, and the game doesn't really guide you as much. Weapons and consumables aren't highlighted, so finding them is more difficult, and you have to conserve ammo more and or really go looking for new weapons and ammo. They aren't just there like they are in the normal campaign. Now, as far as graphics and sound design, this is another area where I would say that Left 4 Dead 2 was way ahead of its time. Honestly, when I first picked up this game, if you had told me that it was made post-2012, I would have believed you without hesitation. I mean, to be honest, when I first wrote this script, I thought that this game was made in like 2013, 2014 before I looked it up. I mean, look at it this way. Assassin's Creed 3, which is a major AAA game, that was released in 2012. And does that really look better than Left 4 Dead 2? No way. And actually, on a side note, that's actually another good example of the gameplay being ahead of its time. All the Assassin's Creed games before Origins always felt super clunky to play to me. But anyways, the point is that the aesthetic and the graphics were really good and ahead of its time. The aesthetic for a lot of these maps gives a really dark and haunted feeling. It feels like you're in an apocalypse, which it should, because that's the premise of the game. I wouldn't at all describe it as a horror game, though, but it has some eerie vibes at times. The sound design contributes to this, but I would say that the sound design feels more like an arcade game than trying to design for an immersive experience. Certain key voice lines and sound cues for certain zombie types, etc. The sound design is very functional, and as I said in the gameplay section, this game feels like it was designed for a multiplayer arcade experience, and this is no exception.
The other side, we can help you lower.
We can try this under the river tour to get across.
Through this park.
Watch out!
Look out!
If you see what I mean, there's certain dings and kind of sound cues that you probably wouldn't put in there if the goal of designing this game was an immersive story experience. But again, I don't think that's the point. It's an arcade co-op multiplayer experience, and for going through and shooting down zombies with your friends, it's perfect. I picked up Left 4 Dead 2 expecting a campaign zombie game with a story, which is not really what I got. However, I did get an awesome shooter where I can run through an apocalypse and kill zombies at a fast pace. And this, Left 4 Dead 2, delivers on nearly perfectly. And if I were reviewing this in 2009, it would have been absolutely perfect. With that being said, I can't think of another zombie game that I would want to play over Left 4 Dead 2. It's certainly more fun than any COD Zombies version I've ever played. Despite the game being 13 years old, I can't really think of anything newer that I would rather play if I wanted that kind of experience. I haven't seen anything come out in the last 10 years that looks like it would give it a run for its money. Now again, this is kind of a new thing that I'm trying out, and I wouldn't say that, I really adopted this as like my new genre or anything like that. But if I want to just go run through and shoot stuff and have fun, this is going to be my go-to game for now. It delivers really well on that. Solid 8 out of 10 on our weeds. Please in the comments leave any recommendations that you might have for me. I'd love to hear them. And please like and subscribe for more content.